Now that the first rollout for Toyota ambulances has happened in Gran Turismo 7 yesterday, in fact I totally forgot it was going to be yesterday and I happened to log into the game and see it, which was a nice surprise, it is finally the time to talk about the Himedic. And much like the GR Corolla, I can talk about some things and not others because of course we can't technically buy it in the game yet. There are a couple of very curious things about this vehicle for those who are interested, and of course we're going to get into that. I will also be talking about, for the moment, because of course it doesn't have engine swaps, which is not surprising for now, but we're going to talk about the standard settings, or the standard specs more so, and the fully tuned specs, and see what this vehicle offers. Now of course it doesn't have a price tag at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see what it is. I would suspect probably something like 50 grand maybe when it's in the game. Curiously though, on the point of price, you can actually give this a new engine and new body for free, which is very strange. It's the only vehicle that I've seen that happen with in GT7. Now, I may have just missed that. Maybe that's a particular special car thing, but I don't know. I've never noticed that being an option on any other vehicle, but for this one you can do it absolutely for free, which is interesting. It certainly comes in handy if you ever wanted to return it to stock. You can, of course, paint it, and there are plenty of interesting liveries for it already in the game, such as the one that I've got in the thumbnail. You've got the standard one, of course, that I'm using here in the video, but the opportunities are pretty much endless when it comes to a big van like this. Now, the stock numbers are very, very low, as you'd expect. It weighs a lot, it doesn't have a huge amount of power, and the point level is very low as well. 243 points, 157 horsepower, and it weighs in at technically 2.9 tons. 2860 kilos, so it's a pretty heavy one. It's also naturally aspirated and four-wheel drive. Now, fully tuned, that's when things really get interesting, because you can actually make this almost a ton lighter than it starts out as. You can drop it from 2860 kilos to somewhere around the 1900 region, which is pretty impressive, still pretty heavy of course, but not bad at all. And crucially, you can improve the power quite a lot, thanks in particular to the mid and high range turbos, from the standard 157 horses all the way up to 514, which is pretty cool given that it doesn't have the engine swap option as yet. A 2JZ version would be awesome, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if this does get some swap options in future, but for now it's still pretty damn quick already. Now, the version that you're watching me drive here is pretty obviously that version that I have fully tuned. You can fit NOS to it, you can put, as I said, the weight loss, the turbos, you can do everything to it pretty much that you would with any other car. It does have visual modifications as well. You can put a chin splitter on it, you can remove the rear step, you can remove the accoutrement from the rear view mirrors. You can essentially make it look a little bit smoother and sleeker. Of course you can change the rims as well. You can move the number plate around, you can change the headlight colour. You can pretty much do everything you would with any other vehicle. So if you are looking forward to having it and you don't have it yet, maybe you missed the opportunity of watching the stream or whatever the case may be, I would actually say it's probably not going to disappoint you. My favourite thing about it is actually, in chase cam in particular, it really reminds me of the days when racing games used to have these weird vehicles that were like secret cars or special vehicles that you could only get with a cheat code or accomplishing a certain niche thing. One that comes to mind is Colin McRae, I think it was. It might have been Colin McRae 3. You could get a rally Ford Transit van. You could also get like a little remote controlled jet and fly around on the dirt. Those were the days of having those weird wacky cars included. Of course you've got like the tank in Toka as well, and the lava racetrack Mario style. It's something which has kind of gone away from racing games almost completely, and I think that really is a shame. Of course you can say in Gran Turismo Sport and 7 this car doesn't really have any place in the game, and I wouldn't necessarily argue that that's wrong. But for those of us, myself definitely included, who came up in the era of having weird vehicles, not only in Gran Turismo but in other games too, of course it's a welcome addition. And I really do wish that we hadn't left that kind of mentality behind. It really was from a time when games had, strangely, more of an innocence almost. Games were actually about fun, rather than trying to be the most realistic or leading to some kind of future career path, which is what Gran Turismo, including the recent movie, seems to be really pushing at the moment. This one, to me, is actually one of the best vehicles of this update. The Maserati is, again, probably the standout, but this one, having such low expectations, and more so such a low bar of what it needs to be good for. You know, it doesn't matter if a vehicle like this is good or not, much like the already existing minivan that we had in the game anyway. well, that's when they can turn out to be far better than you'd expect. And much like that one already did, the Alphard, this one is as well. Of course an engine swap would be awesome, and I really do hope we get that, but it does remind me, like I said earlier on, of those special, weird, wacky, secret vehicles. It also reminds me very much of the kind of vehicle that you'd see a really low-resolution version of, parked outside of the railings on a Gran Turismo circuit. You know how, I mean, they still do it now, but especially in the older games, you'd notice, like, even what is clearly a representation of a specific make or type of car that's parked just over the railings around like Midfield Raceway or wherever it is, and it's a car that isn't in the game, but it kind of just sits there, semi-existing in a very low quality model, and this almost looks like that. Especially again in chase cam, it looks like you're driving something that you shouldn't be driving. It looks like you've hacked the game almost, and for that it gives me like the Lunar Rover vibes from Gran Turismo 6, of just a really weird vehicle that you don't really need. You don't need to have any kind of expectations from it, but that's when you can be really pleasantly surprised. So I'm actually glad that this is in the game. Is it dumb? Potentially. Is it useful? Not particularly. But is it fun? Absolutely. It's actually great through corners. It's really fun to drive. It's not that quick. Fully tuned, it is just over 500 points. That's on sports tyres. You can get it even higher on racing tyres, of course. But yeah, it's modest in terms of its numbers. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun. That's all it is. I would find it interesting to know why Kaz, or whoever picks the vehicles, I'm going to guess Kaz at least has some role in that, picked this particular one. Because Kaz usually likes to select certain vehicles that seem to mean something to him. So we had, for example, the Nürburgring spec Nissan GTR that he drove in real life. We had, of course, the Ford GT as the cover car of Gran Turismo 4 because it was Kaz's favourite car at the time. That happens quite a few times where he'll pick these vehicles that seem to have a specific, standout for him. Much like Clarkson with the Porsche 928, or, if certain vehicles that I've had might pop up in a game. It feels to me like there's a connection here. Maybe something to do with an ambulance trip for somebody he knew, or some kind of personal experience made him have an affinity for the vehicle. I could be just completely barking up the wrong tree, but it seems to me like the kind of car that would have some kind of meaning for whoever picked it. Or it could just be completely random as a total joke. I'd love to have something even more crazy, like a fire truck in the game. It would almost feel at that point like you're playing Runabout instead of Gran Turismo, but hey, I'm all for it. I'd take a tank around the track if I could. It would be fun taking that around like Fisherman's Ranch on Caterpillar tracks, but yeah, for now, this is the craziest thing probably that we have in this game, certainly the craziest real-world vehicle, and that's it for my thoughts on the ambulance. So I'd love to hear from my fellow players who have driven this one and tuned it already. Are you disappointed by it, maybe? I don't really see how anyone could be disappointed. It's not like it's claiming to be the next Renault Espace F1 or Ford Supervan, but if you did find it enjoyable, of course tell me your thoughts down below, or if you didn't, tell me your thoughts down below. And of course, we'll have to stick around to see what the pricing on this one is, and the GR Corolla as well, when they do arrive en masse in the game. But for now, that is it for my coverage of the August update. For those who were asking and who were wondering, I think I might actually skip August in terms of a special projects pack, because of obviously Polyphony swapped their update schedule around, which kind of messes around with mine. And just in case they do one at the start of next month again, I don't think they will, I don't want to do the pack right behind it. So I'm going to skip August and then probably do special projects at the start of September instead. And then we'll see what happens at the end of September, I guess. But that's it for this vid. I'll see you next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.